All right, well, it is 2 o'clock, so welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm Sarah Miller. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications with the Small Business Association of Michigan, and we're really pleased to have this presentation today on Youth Employment Standards Act. Jennifer Fields is the Division Manager with LEO, and she's going to walk us through today's presentation. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat and we can answer those as we go, or have a few minutes at the end as well. So thanks again, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for this invitation. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Jennifer Fields. I am the Wage and Hour Division Manager for the state of Michigan. I have been with Wage and Hour since 1994. I started off as an investigator, senior investigator, regional manager, and I've been the division manager since 2013. We have a wonderful team here. I have one of my regional managers, Jill Hookies, who's on the call as well. And Jill will help me if we need assistance with anything. So thank you, Jill, I appreciate it. So Michigan Wage and Hour. I love to see people in person, but it's great to be online and let you folks get some information. Right now, we in Michigan Wage and Hour Division, we are part of LEO, Labor and Economic Opportunity. We enforce several different laws. There are two wage and hour divisions. There's a state wage and hour division that enforces state laws, and that's who we're with. There's a federal wage and hour division that enforces federal law. So make sure you know who's sending you letters. Make sure you clarify whether it's a state or the federal. Michigan's Wage and Hour Division, we have Michigan's Youth Employment Standards Act, which we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Michigan's Payment of Wages and Fringe Benefits Act, a little bit of information about that. Michigan's Minimum Wage and Overtime, Michigan's Paid Medical Leave Act, and the Human Trafficking Notification Act. The focus today, again, is on youth employment, but I do want to touch on these other acts. Youth employment. Michigan's Youth Employment Act applies to all employers in Michigan that employ anybody under 18. The U.S. Department of Labor also has guidelines under the Fair Labor Standards Act. As an employer, you should follow the stricter standard, whether state or federal. State is stricter on several different items. The state requires work permits. It prohibits employment in hazardous or injurious occupations. We regulate the hours that minors can work. We require meal and rest periods, adult supervision, and we require a poster regarding youth employment to be placed at the work site. I wanted to tell you right away the employees that this does not apply to. If you have a 16-year-old who's graduated from high school, they are not subject to the Youth Employment Standards Act. You would get a copy of their high school diploma and keep that on file. Same thing if you have a minor who's completed the requirements for the GED, you would keep that on file as well. And those, again, are people that are not covered by youth employment standards. If you have a minor that's emancipated, they would actually have to have some kind of court document that said they were emancipated. They can't just tell you they're emancipated. You have to see some kind of legal proof that they are. If it's a minor that's working on the old school term cooperative agreement or a work-based learning, an agreement between the school district and the employer, that's an exemption. You follow the terms of that agreement. Domestic chores in a private residence, that's exempt. If you own and operate a business, your own children can work for you without this act applying to you. Again, the parent or legal guardian has to own and operate the business for them to be exempt. If the minor is 14 and working at the school where they're enrolled, they're exempt. Farm work is exempt if it's cultivating and raising crops and livestock, it's exempt. Okay, there have been a couple recent amendments to the Youth Employment Standards Act. The amendments became effective on March 24th. It took away the requirement that work permits be applied for in person. So they can be issued by email, fax, mail. online. They do no longer have to go in person to the school. The school minors can contact any local public school to get a work permit issued by an issuing officer. The second part to this amendment is it took the requirement away that work permits be on different colors. It used to be that if they were under the age of 16, the work permit had to be pink. If they were 16 or 17, the law said it had to be yellow. That amendment has taken away that requirement. The work permits can be printed on white paper. We have changed the work permit for minors under 16 to make it distinct from the 16 and 17-year-olds. It's in the landscape format. So make sure that the correct work permit gets filled out. And we do have the work permits available on our website. Okay. The minimum age for most in minor employment is 14, but there are a few exceptions. Minors that are aged 11 to 13 can work as referees, umpires, golf caddies, or bridge caddies. Minors age 13 can set traps for shooting events. If they are not exempt from the act, they have to have a work permit issued before they start to work for you. The biggest issue is people start working and they don't have a completed work permit on file. Make sure you obtain that work permit before the minor works 1 minute for you. The work permit is valid for that specific employer. The work permit is valid as long as they don't have any break in service. If you have a minor working for you when they're 14, 15, and then when they turn 16, I would suggest you get a new work permit when they turn 16. The work permit is supposed to be returned to the school after the employment terminates. The school district also has a right to revoke a work permit if a minor has poor attendance or poor grades. They can suspend it for 30 days and give the minor the chance to improve their grades or attendance, but the school district has a right to revoke those work permits. Adult supervision. Minors have to have adult supervision at all times. Adult supervision means you as the employer or one of your employees age 18 or older is there to render immediate assistance in case of an emergency. If a minor is involved and left alone in a cash transaction after sunset or 8 p.m., there is a more severe penalty. Minors require adult supervision all times, but there's a more severe penalty if a minor is left alone after sunset or 8 p.m. So make sure your minors are always supervised. If you have a minor that has graduated from high school that's 16 or 17, they are not adult supervision yet because they're not 18. So just keep that in mind. Alcoholic beverages. Minors can't work in establishments where alcohol is more than 50% of the total sales. 14 and 15-year-olds can't work in the part of the restaurant where the alcohol is sold or consumed. They can't work in the dining room. They can work in the kitchen, washing the dirty cups and glasses, but they can't be out in the dining room where it's sold or consumed. And liquor control regulates who can sell or serve alcohol. So minors under 18 should not be doing that. Minors are not allowed to do certain hazardous occupations. We have guidelines for this, but here's some of the most common ones. They can't work with any hazardous substances, chemicals, explosives, or radioactive substances. Driving and working as an outside helper, like pizza delivery. Minors delivering pizza is a very hazardous occupation. Minors should not be employed to drive and deliver things as a regular part of their job duties. So be careful about delivery drivers. Make sure they're at least 18. Jobs in the logging and sawmill industry, woodworking, ladders and scaffolding for people that are under 16 should not be doing it. Brazing, welding, soldering, and heat treating for less than 16 should not do it. Minors cannot work on construction sites, excavation sites, bridges, streets, or highways. The only thing a minor can really do on a construction site, if they're 16 and 17, they can do cleanup on a private residence when nothing else is going on. Minors also can't be involved in slaughtering or butchering, cutting meat, meat slicers, meat grinders. Minors should not operate, clean, do any of those things with that type of equipment. Minors also should not be involved in operating power-driven tools, saws, bakery machines, paper machines, metal forming, punching, and shearing. If you are covered by the federal law, which means you have interstate commerce or you're doing over $500,000 a year, the U.S. Department of Labor puts out bulletins where they have specific orders, so you would want to check the equipment that you would want the minor to use. Hours of employment. Minors that can't work more than 6 days in a work week. They can't work more than an average of 8 hours per day in a week. No more than 10 hours in a day. Minors require a 30-minute break after 5 hours of work. So if you schedule them for 5 hours and you send them home right at the 5th hour, they're not required to have a break. If you have them come in for 4.5 hours, not required to have a break. But if you schedule them for 6 hours, after 5 hours of work, they need to have a 30-minute uninterrupted break. And I would recommend that you document that so that you have that in your records. 14 and 15-year-old minors can't work more than 48 hours of school and work combined in a work week. On their work permit, that school should write how many hours they're in school. Typically, they're in school for 30 hours, which means they could work 18. Minors that are 14 and 15 shouldn't work before 7 or after 9 p.m. Now, the federal law is stricter on 14 and 15-year-olds, hours that they can work. They don't let them work past 7. I believe it's from Memorial Day to Labor Day. But again, if your business is doing over the $500,000 a year or interstate commerce, definitely want to follow the federal guidelines for the 14 and 15-year-old minors. This on the side here, minors may not be employed during the hours they're required to attend school, either online or in person. So this home schooling, this virtual schooling, if a minor's required to take classes or be online, let's say 9 to 12, they should not be working between 9 and 12. Anytime that they're required to be attending school, whether in person or remotely, they should not be scheduled to work during that time. 16 and 17-year-olds. They changed the law. It used to say they could work 48 hours a week, schoolwork combined, just like the 14, 15. They changed it to say 16 and 17-year-olds, when school's in session, they cannot work more than 24 hours in that week. They cannot work more than 40 hours in a week when school's not in session. The minors that are 16 and 17 can't work before 6 or after 10:30, Sunday through Thursday. They can't work before 6 or after 11:30 on Fridays and Saturdays when school's in session for at least 7 days, not in session, excuse me. Okay, hours. So let's talk about deviations. Deviations allow minors to work that are 16 and 17 to work later at night, not more hours in the week, but later at night. If you are an employer and you want to have a general hours deviation, you can apply for it in our office. The forms are online. Again, it's for 16, 17-year-olds. It allows minors to work later at night. You have to have written parental permission to allow the minor to work the deviated hours. And once you get a general hours deviation approved by us for your location, you just need to keep a copy of the minor's work permit, and again, the parent's written permission to work, and that's what you need to keep. That's for a general hours deviation. If you have a minor that needs to work different hours, then you can do an individual hours deviation that's specific for that minor. There's an application for that on our website. You fill that out, have the parent sign it, send a copy of the work permit to our office, and we can approve it. Excuse me. Okay, what is the responsibilities for an employer? Let me go one more. Sorry, guys. Employers have the responsibility to legally employ minors. Make sure you're following the act. If a minor is injured at work, workers' compensation sends us over the Form 100s for us to determine whether the employment was legal or illegal under Act 90. If the employment is determined to be illegal, it is double workers' comp for that employee. So that it behooves you to make sure you're following the act. Make sure you provide the adult supervision and breaks. Make sure you keep a copy of the work permit or the proof of exemption. Again, if they've graduated from high school or if they are emancipated or have the GED. Keep copies of any deviation and parental consent for the minor. Again, keep the records to show the number of hours they worked and starting ending times. And then post the poster at your work site. The poster is available for free at our website. You never have to pay for posters. I'm sorry if there's poster companies out there. People do not have to pay for them. You can go online and download those for free. Okay. That was youth employment in a nutshell. If you have other questions, you can come to our website, the michigan.gov/wage hour. We have all the work permits. We have FAQs, all kinds of good information on youth employment. I want to go through Act 390 quickly with you, just because this is talking about paying people. So Michigan Wage and Hour also enforce the Act 390, payment of wages and fringe benefits. This applies to most employees in Michigan. Act 390 does not apply to people that work like at the post office or a state civil service, but applies to most employees. It regulates the payment of wages, whether it's hourly, salary, commission, piece rate. Wages can be paid weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. You can pay wages in currency. If you do pay in currency or cash, please make sure you get signed receipts. You can pay in a check, direct deposit, or a payroll debit card. The law used to say that you could not force people to have direct deposit, but it was changed so you can offer direct deposit, and if the employee doesn't want it, you can do one of those payroll debit cards. Deductions, other than deductions required by law, like taxes and court orders or collective bargaining agreement, you have to have the employee's written consent to make a deduction from their wages that has the amount or method of calculation, the pay period to be deducted from, and their written signature. Signing acknowledgement of a handbook is not written consent to make a deduction from wages. Act 390 also allows an employer to recoup an overpayment based on a typographical or clerical error under certain conditions. Again, it has to be a typo, a clerical error. Somebody was supposed to get $10 an hour and they got 110, something like that. If you have this situation occur, on our website, we have an overpayment guideline sheet. It goes step by step, and you have 6 months to find it, and explains how you can do that. Payment of wages also defines 5 items as fringe benefits: vacation pay, sick pay, holiday pay, bonuses, and authorized expenses. Whatever an employer has in a written policy or contract is what we would enforce. You cannot require a tip or a fee or gratuity from an employee to continue or obtain employment. Check stubs. Employers have to provide check stubs to employees. They can be provided electronically. The only time that can be an issue if somebody leaves employment and they're not able to go back into the system, I would recommend at that point you mail it out to them. And under 390, there's protection. Employees can't be discriminated against because they have filed a wage complaint or exercised a right under Act 390. Okay, that was 390 in a very small nutshell. Michigan's minimum wage and overtime law, which is called the Improved Workforce Opportunity Wage Act. Michigan's minimum wage right now is, of course, is higher than the federal. Michigan's minimum wage applies when you have 2 or more employees age 16 or older. Right now, minimum wage is $9.65. We will have to see what the unemployment rate is for 2021 to see if it will go up to $9.87 on January 1st, 2022. I would suggest you keep an eye on our website, see what the unemployment rate is. And we won't be able to decide that until the end of December. You can pay a lower minimum wage to minors that are 16 and 17 can be paid 85% of minimum wage. Right now, that would be $8.20 an hour. Tipped employees can be paid 38% of the minimum wage. There is a training wage of $4.25 an hour for the first 90 days for new hires, age 16 through 19. If you're going to hire somebody for a sub minimum wage or any wage, I suggest you let the people know what they're going to be working for. Overtime is typically anything physically worked over 40 in a work week. Just a little bit more information here. Michigan's Wage and Hour also has a Paid Medical Leave Act. This applies to employers that have 50 or more employees that work anywhere in the US or its territories. There are 12 categories of employees that are not eligible for paid medical leave. Two of the probably most interesting ones for this group are the people under the age of 18, or they can be paid a sub-minimum wage or not covered by the Paid Medical Leave Act, or people that worked in the preceding year fewer than 25 hours average. Paid medical leave simply requires employers to provide 1 hour of paid medical leave for every 35 hours worked, up to 40 in a year, a benefit year. You can front load 40 hours, or you can have them accrue it. If you use the accrual method, you have to allow them to carry over up to 40 unused hours to the next year. You do the front load, you do not have to carry it over for the next year. These are ways to get a hold of us. We do the paid medical leave. We have a dedicated mailbox for that. We have an email address for WINFO questions. We do publications. We have lots of nice publications. We do speaking engagements, educational contacts. We also do complaint investigations. Claims can be filed. We send out letters to let people know that the claims have been filed, and we ask for payment of records. Just because somebody's filed a complaint doesn't mean that we're going to find a violation. We have the obligation to investigate. We make sure we look at records and make a decision based on what the law is. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer them. And if you need us to come out to speak anytime, Sarah, or anybody, we'd be happy to come and do that. Love to see people in person. So that kind of wraps it up until see if we have any questions.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. We really appreciate that. We do have a few questions that came in. The first one was, if a minor has already graduated or received their GED, do they still need to take a break before their 5th hour of work?
No. Once they have graduated high school or completed the GED, then they are exempt from the Youth Employment Standards Act, and they're not required to have a break.
Okay.
They're not covered by the act any longer.
Great. We did have another question come in. Do you have to pay $4.95 an hour, or can you pay more?
You can absolutely pay more. You're not going to have probably a lot of luck paying people the $4.25 an hour, the new hires, age 16 through 19. The law allows you to do that. Whether in this job market you can do it or not, to get any help is beside the point. You obviously can pay more to your help if you wish.
Great. And then we have another question that it looks like Jill has offered to answer.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jill.
So Jill, is there a reminder within the YES system for when the minor turns 16? Jill, just a reminder, if you are answering, there you are.
Okay, so I was going to do a follow-up question and hit the wrong button. So if Sharnay Jones would answer, what is the YES system? Because I am not familiar with that. Jennifer, are you?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay.
From a wage and hour perspective, it's up to the employer to monitor when somebody turns 16 through the work permit and their personnel files. And we aren't familiar with what a YES system is.
She's saying it's the youth employment system.
Is that a private software that a company sells to employers?
So it looks like maybe it's not in Michigan. So maybe Charnay, you could connect with Jill or Jennifer offline
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if it's in Indiana and not in Michigan, the answer is no, you have to do that yourself. So, or follow up with your administrators on the ES system.
Great. We did have another question come in. I'll let it go back to Jennifer. Do you have to take out all required taxes for teenagers, or are they exempt from some of those?
Okay. As an employer, you need to follow whatever the IRS and Michigan Department of Treasury requires you to take out. I am not aware of anything that exempts minors from not having to pay any taxes, but that's something that I would suggest you either contact your CPA about or the IRS. But whatever taxes you're required to take out as an employer, you should do that. You should do that. So.
Great, thank you. I think it looks like we have answered all of the questions that came in from the chat. So I do see that you have put some email addresses there for different resources.
Yes.
And obviously what we're going to do is take this recording and the slides that have been submitted to us, and we'll make those available to all who registered via email, probably within the next, I'd love to say tomorrow morning. It's just dependent on our team, but definitely within the next 24 hours. And then it'll be available on the SBAM website as well.
Right.
So
can I make one final plug for our website? You go to the michigan.gov/wage hour and you click on youth employment. It has kids making ice cream. Click on that picture. The FAQs on there, I think, are very helpful. You'll see the work permits that you can download, hours deviations. I think the website is very helpful, and I'm quite proud of our FAQs. So, and if you see something that you think we should answer, let us know. Let us know.
Absolutely, that's great. My first job at age 16 was scooping ice cream, so I can identify with that.
Me too. Me too.
Little plug for Sherman's Dairy in South Haven, Michigan. So anyway, all right. Well, we appreciate this so much. It was super informative. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Jennifer or those on her team. And you can tune in to the small business briefing tomorrow at 3 p.m. right here on Zoom and on Facebook, and we'll see you then. So thanks all.
Perfect. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay well. Happy summer.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.